Last time on D&D, featuring Adrian Silverstrength, the human paladin, Apostrophe, the Goliath cleric, Dickpoop, the elven wizard, Morsus Firebeard, the hill dwarf cleric, and Rex James, the bronze dragonborn bard. Rescued aboard the Shadow Minnow, the party eventually makes it to the Ivory Coast. The captain of the ship recommends checking out a place known as the Lion's Maid in the Ivory Coast for potential job opportunities. The party had lost a considerable amount of gold between the flooding island and the time they spent aboard the Shadow Minnow basically paying for food and lodging when they were not able to work off basically the costs. Because so many people are traveling to the Ivory Coast, passage aboard the ships that are headed to and from the main continent to the Ivory Coast is very expensive, so the captain unfortunately has to charge them for their time aboard the ship. In the Lion's Mane, the party found a monk who was offering a job, 200 gold in total, for going into an ore mine and helping collapse it. The party talks to the monk to try to gather a little bit more information. They kind of feel like he's holding back on something. But the monk assures him he truly does not know much more than that the mayor of this town had asked him to come here to look for adventurers to go into the mine and basically help collapse it. That there was some form of danger that was in the mine and he wasn't sure what that danger was. Because of those lack of details, the party actually manages to convince the monk to pay up front half of that 200 gold in total, so the party gains 100 gold. The party then joins a caravan that is actually headed for Spire's Edge, the city where the miners are working out of. Since the journey is going to take several days, the caravan decides to find a good spot to stop on the first night. And on that first night, they're actually attacked by brigands. The party's there to basically help out the caravan guards to ensure that the brigands are not successful in their attack and help drive away the few remaining brigands that survived the assault. By the third day, the party arrives at Spire's Edge and speaks with the mayor of the city and manages to convince him to pay half of the payment up front, deceiving the mayor that they'd gotten no money from the monk that was back at the Ivory Coast. In speaking with the mayor, the party does learn that apparently cultists have moved into this mine, and that they are excavating something there, and that now they've unleashed a number of things that are unnatural to the world. Such creatures that are made of blobs, and some that, upon even seeing or hearing it, cause sheer madness. The party decides they're going to need a full night's rest before they head into the mine. The following morning, after arriving in the mine, they found one of the metal carts outside of the cavern, and climbed inside of it. Apostrophe decided to push it. However, the creaking of the cart alerted the gnolls that were just inside the cavern. Once inside the cavern, the party notices the gnolls' camp, but there's no gnolls anywhere to be found. While they're investigating the camp, they're looking around, trying to find things, trying to find evidence of these gnolls. The gnolls actually leap out and surprise the party and deal a significant amount of damage. But the party eventually overcame the gnolls, especially after Apostrophe cast Thunderwave and toppled over some of the mining beams. The party then took the deceased gnolls and set them up sort of as scarecrows so that they're positioned near the mouth of the cave, peering outward as if the cave was still basically being occupied by these gnolls. The party moved to the northern portion of the room, moving more slowly, realizing that the gnolls had ambushed them, and perhaps that sound of combat has triggered other creatures to be aware of their presence. And sure enough, they're absolutely correct. Bugbears, which are notorious for being able to ambush people, and the bugbears are able to do significant damage because of their ambushing ability. However, once again, the party's able to defeat them, but now have taken quite a bit of a beating. The party then enters into what appears to be the main room, and in here there's a large pulley system made for picking up and dropping off clumps of ore into these carts, which would then be pushed outside to be gathered and transferred. So now they're standing at this large pulley system wondering, should they go deeper into the cavern using a pulley system, or is there a different way? Because if they use the pulley system, will that alert anyone else down below that they're coming? And that is where we ended session 3. This was a pretty short session. I wish I could recall if the game was actually that short. Sometimes we ran a little late by just kicking back, talking, eating pizza and whatnot before the game. So some of our sessions were typically shorter than the typical 3 hours that we ran. This does seem pretty short, even for just the notes. So I just figured I'd do this one right now, along with the first and second one that I've already done today, and knock this one out as well. Also, I'm kind of eager to get to the 17th session where I actually began recording, so you can actually hear the players speaking their parts and doing their things, saying what they're going to do versus just having me read these notes. I did continue to do notes even after I was recording because it helps me. I'm able to go to my site and find various things, names of NPCs and stuff like that very easily. So even though these were being recorded, I did continue to do notes, and the notes were far more thorough as I continued going, because as I was doing these games, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with these characters. Like, these first couple of sessions, they're very combat heavy because other than the person who played Morsus, none of them had played D&D. So I was trying to get them familiar to understand how to attack, what the different weapons do in terms of damage and stuff like that. So the first couple of sessions really did rely on a lot of combat, and some of them doing like savings throw or ability checks, just to get them familiar with, hey, what's the difference between a strength check and a strength save? Why do I make a dex check here but a dex save here, and stuff like that. So the first couple are not very heavy in terms of story. The story does not pick up until a little bit later. All of this is pretty much like training wheels of D&D for my players who are all pretty much brand new to D&D, again, except for the player who played Morsus. So not a lot of story yet, but I promise we get into some heavy story late. But I promise we do get into some heavy storylines later. All right. Hopefully you're still hanging out and you're going to follow us on to session 4.